I've got 7 o'clock now if you want. Oh, you are recording now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. We'll officially start the meeting in just a minute or two we'd like to allow a minute or so for attendees to all get on board the recently started Zoom call. And then we will officially begin. So for that, yep, I see attendees are glomming on. So that's good. Okay. Well, another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll start. I've got ice cubes in here. I hope this doesn't sound too much like cowbells, the cows coming home to the barn. Anyway, all right, let's get started. Pardon me. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Newburyport Historical Commission for the 28th of July, 2022. Please note that this proceeding, like all these virtual meetings, is being recorded. So we'll start with a roll call of our commissioners. So Mr. Andrew Bernhardt, I believe
I'm
you're
here.
Okay. Malcolm Carnwath, did he show yet? We'll skip Malcolm for the moment. Mark Sendrone.
Present.
Oh, okay, thank you, Mark. Christopher Fay.
Present.
Yep, great. Thank you, Chris. Joe Morgan.
Here.
Okay, and so it looks like we're missing Malcolm. So I'll just make a note here that Mr. Carnwath appears to be absent. Okay, so we also have Caitlin Sullivan of the Planning Office and Planning Director Andrew Port on the call, and Gretchen Joy, our minute taker. Now, there probably will be public hearings tonight. So if you, as a member of the public, wish to speak, the way we do that is you have to raise your hand using the Zoom controls. So familiarize yourself with that. If you happen to be calling in on a telephone, you need to use *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute and unmute your audio. Once you will need to unmute yourself on your end, and we will take care of unmuting your audio on our end. Of course, during hearings for a specific applicant, the applicant and or their attorneys and architects, whatever, will obviously have their audio enabled as well. Okay, so thanks very much. The first order of business, we have 2 demolition delay applications. The first one is for 26 Columbus Avenue. I see that's Mead, Tolman, and Costa, and I think I saw Attorney Mead in the attendees list. So Ms. Mead, I assume you're representing the client. Is that correct? We have your audio enabled, I believe.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. You're a little bit low, but yes, we can hear you.
I'll get a little closer. That would be correct.
Okay. All right. Before I turn it over to you, Attorney Mead, I just want to review for the commission very briefly how these demolition delay applications work, because it can be slightly confusing. The commission first has to determine into which of 3 categories a structure falls. This is like the first vote. It's either not historically significant and considered for preservation, or historically significant but not considered for preservation. Now, if and only if the determination is that it's historically significant and considered for preservation, we move on to a public hearing of the demolition and rebuild plan, if there is one, or at least a demo plan is how the ordinance refers to it. Now that review, which includes a public hearing and public comment period, is followed by a vote on whether or not the structure is preferably preserved. If we find that yes, it is preferably preserved, then a 1-year demo delay is imposed. However, the meeting has been noticed and all that, so we can do that public hearing, and also we can take a vote. If we decide to approve the proposed plans, we can take that vote in tonight's meeting, and if that motion to approve the plans is passed, the demolition delay is lifted, and the applicant is all set. So that's the brief review of that process, one of which I'm sure Attorney Mead is very familiar, but not everyone is. So this is 26 Columbus Avenue, removing some work and some new construction. So Attorney Mead, why don't I turn it over to you to make your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission. Lisa Mead, Teller McCoster, 30 Green Street in Newburyport. With me this evening is Scott Brown, who's the architect on this project. Also on this hearing is Richard and Pamela Renzi, who are the owners of the property. And as the chair said, we do have our presentation divided into two sections, so the board can make their first determination before we move on into our second section. So if you go to the next slide, please, Caitlin. This property is at 26 Columbus Avenue. The Renzis proposed to remove a side sunroom, which would include obviously a roofline change, and remove a rear mudroom that was later added onto the home. For the purposes of our presentation, as I said, we'll do it in two parts. The structure was built in or around 1930, according to the assessor's card. It does not appear on the district data sheets, and there is no Form B for the property. It does, however, appear on the 1924 assessor's map, indicating that it was built at least earlier than 1924 and certainly earlier than 1930, according to the assessor's records. The assessor's card lists the style of the house as old style colonial. However, it's much more reminiscent of a colonial revival or Dutch colonial style structure due to the date of the construction and design features such as the gambrel roof, dormers, and original side sunroom, as we noted a minute ago. It's located in the R2 zoning district. If you could switch to the next slide, please. Here's the 1924 assessor's map. You can see it right in the middle. It's highlighted around the lot itself. And that looks like a 3, but it's actually a 26. And you can see the side sunroom in that photograph, which is similar, obviously, as the adjacent structures on the street. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Tracy Street had to be sketched in on that map. It wasn't even formally laid out, I guess, at the time.
No, not at all. If you could slide back up to that slide a minute. So I would thank you, Mr. Chair. There, yeah. So there's Tracy Street, right? It wasn't formally laid out, but it existed as it may have been a lot. I mean, I don't know at the time. But the other thing I want to point out is that the rear mudroom is not on this plan, as you can see, but there is the side sunroom. Okay, so if you can go to the next slide, please. So here's a front view of the property. You can see the room that we propose to remove off to the left there. Next slide, please. And then here's a view going down Columbus Ave. So that would be the southerly side, if you will. Next slide, please. And then that's going up Columbus Ave. So that's the northerly side. And the next slide, please. And again, there's a little, you can see a little piece of the sunroom behind that tree. So with that, Mr. Chair, there's really not much more about the history of the house. But for what I've said to you, and we'd request the board make its first determination. Perhaps you're muted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I was muted. Sorry about that. Thank you. So that first determination is whether it's historically significant and considered for preservation. So let me just quickly go around my my board here in no particular order. How about start with how about Mark Sandrone? Any thoughts or opinions on this?
Does not seem to be a very historically significant structure. Certainly is kind of a architectural mishmash. So I don't feel very strongly about this.
Okay, any thoughts, Andrew? Oh, I think you're muted, Andrew.
I also agree that in light that they're just taking that sunroom away also, I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay, so this, as far as historical significance, that's what we first need to determine whether it's you know, historically significant and worthy or of consideration of preservation or not.
Well, then I would say it's a historically significant, but no need for preservation. But that's a second vote. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
it sort of. The second vote is whether it's preferable, whether we do want to preserve it. The first one would say, well, we'll think about preserving it, and then
Right.
after then we take that vote about whether or not it should be preserved after the applicant, shows us their plans in more detail. Which says
Okay.
that was the second part of the presentation that Attorney Mead referred to.
Okay.
Okay, Joe Morgan, any thoughts?
I agree with Mark. I don't think it has in itself much historical significance. And I'm not, we don't, typically we see pictures of the neighborhood and the surrounding structures just to see if there's a streetscape that might be of interest. But I suspect that this is all the same vintage, and I don't, it looks like it from the map, it looks like they're all about the same size and the same footprint. So I don't think this is going to be something that's going to be significant, historically significant.
Okay, and I can tell you that your surmise or your guess is correct. That neighborhood is similar. There's some different styles, and there are some newer ones, but they are, a lot of them are like, especially that Tracy Street, they laid that out and looked like a lot of lots they were built about the same time and so on. So it looks like we have in the some photos of the neighborhood a little bit further down. But yeah, they're not. This is not atypical. Some of them have already also been added on to in the intervening years to be larger. Okay, who did I omit? Christopher Fay, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say, I would say that it's historically significant just based upon its age, and then we can discuss the merits. So I would say yes, historically significant on the first question. Okay,
so if we're going to go to a hearing of the actual plans, the two options are it's historically significant and considered for preservation is the only option if we want to delve further into the plans and take a look at those, and we could certainly at that point say that the plans are fine and approve it. There would be the technicality of temporarily imposing the demo delay, but that's neither here nor there. So if we decide it's either not historically significant or historically significant but not considered for preservation, then that's the end of the review. Just wanted to be clear on that. So why don't I do this? Would someone suggest a motion that it's historically significant and considered for preservation? If you feel we don't even need to bother further, you would just vote no on that. And if that motion fails, then we'll consider it. I guess I would take a vote on it, or we would determine that it's historic, whether it's significant but not considered for preservation or not historically significant. I know it's it's a three-way decision. It's very difficult to clean up, sort of, but I can't think of a better way to do it at the moment. Can someone make a motion that it's historically significant and considered for preservation? That is the only option if we want to continue reviewing the plans.
I'll make that motion.
All right, thanks, Mark. Any second?
And I second it. This is Joe.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, so we'll see how the votes go on that. Starting with Andrew.
No, it's not
Okay.
historically significant.
Okay, Malcolm's not here, sorry. Get rid of him. Mark Syndrome?
No.
Okay. Christopher Fay?
I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, that's fine. Joe Morgan?
No.
Okay. The chair votes yes, but with only 2 yes votes, that motion does not pass. So I guess Caitlin, should we technically just for the record, so we're clear on whether it's not historically significant or historically significant but not considered for preservation, it's one of those two options. They have basically the same result, but for the sake of the record, should we just clarify which of those two we want to call it? I guess, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the flow chart. It's kind of, the vote is, one option is the motion we just voted on. The other option is basically says not historically significant or significant but not considered. So it doesn't clarify it much. So why don't we why don't we do this? Maybe, why don't we have a motion as to whether it's not historically significant? And if that passes, then that'll be the end of that.
Chair, this is Joe Morgan. I disagree with that. I think that the flow chart is a two-step process. It's pretty clear. And if the building is not historically significant, that's the end of the discussion, period. There's no further, there's no need for any further deliberation because if it's not significant, then it's not preferably preserved. So can we adhere to the flow chart, please?
Yes, we can. And I'm looking at the same flow chart, Joe. What I was trying to clarify is we know it's not being considered for preservation. So you're right. We do not proceed to the review of the plans and all that. The problem I have with the flow chart is the other box says not historically significant or significant but not considered for preservation, which is where we are. I just want to, it'd be nice to say which of those two it is, but I suppose it's not. I don't know if it's legal. I honestly
would have to abstain on that because I don't think it's logical.
Well, then, which, in your opinion, which is it? Not historically significant or significant but not considered for preservation?
It's just simply not historically significant.
So I think, Chair, would you want to entertain another vote to clarify? Because the first vote, I think, was historically significant and not considered for preservation.
No, it was historically significant and considered for preservation.
Okay, so I don't think that passed. So perhaps you would make another vote?
Or we can just leave it as Joe proposed. It's consistent with the flow chart to just say that, that vote failed. So it's just, it's take your pick. It's either not historically significant or in any event, not considered for preservation. So it's the end of the story, so to speak. It's the same result. I don't want to spend all night arguing.
I would ask for Director Port to weigh in at this point, please.
Yeah, I mean, I would go through the logical sequence that the ordinance calls for and stick to that.
Glenn, can I ask a question? This is Chris.
Yeah. Yep.
So I voted that it's historically significant, but I have to agree with Joe in that vote lost.
Right.
So I don't know. Otherwise, every time we take a vote on whether it's historically significant, we would automatically move to another step, regardless of the outcome. So I agree. For me, it's logically, it's a losing vote. So
remember, everyone, that the first step is historically significant and to be considered for preferential preservation, right? So I mean, it doesn't. If you pass the first step, that there are historical indicators that say that the structure should be preserved, then it passes to a second step where we discuss the merits of preservation. It's just a logical 1-2 type process, and I don't think we need to complicate it. We certainly don't need to lengthen the discussion by continuing to talk about a structure that's not historically significant.
Okay. I have to agree.
Agreed.
I totally agree. I agree. There's no reason for a vote. The result is the same.
Well, I agree with that last part. The vote is the same. So what I'll do is in the record, I'll just indicate that vote, which in the flow chart is listed as historically significant and considered for preservation, did not pass. So I'll just say it's either not historically significant or if it were, it's not considered for preservation. It's, we didn't, I understand the logic and I agree. I don't want to beat a dead horse at this point. So we'll just leave it at that. So what that means, that as I'm sure you realize, Attorney Mead, that we do not need to review the demo and rebuild plans. So I'm sorry, well, not sorry, but so that shortens the procedure considerably. And Your applicant does not have to have any demolition delay imposed and may continue. So we'll
Thank
let
you.
the commissioner know, the building commissioner know that building permits or whatever demo permits may be issued.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Okay. All right. Let me just make a quick note here. Okay, sorry that took so long. Next, we have another demolition delay. Sorry, hang on. Sometimes computer doesn't always cooperate. For this one is for 21 Chestnut Street. I believe Mr. Eric Abramo wants to speak. Okay, Eric.
I just want to confirm that everybody can hear me.
Yes, who's speaking?
Yeah, this is Eric Abramo.
Yep.
I'm here with my wife, Maura, and we are the homeowners, and we put together the presentation ourselves.
Okay, you can put your hand down now, Eric, and yes, we can hear you. So please proceed.
Okay, next slide, please. This was just the proposal for the request. So we're proposing to submit the request for the removal of a very small portion of a single-story shed roof, which is located at the rear of our home. The demolition is needed to make way for a sunroom addition to our home in our side yard. The approximate square feet of the section that we want to demo is around 25 square feet, and the proposed sunroom is 168 square feet. We do believe that the sunroom will enhance the aesthetic of our home and the neighborhood in which we live, and that it does not compromise the historic quality of our neighborhood and our home.
Okay.
Caitlin, next slide. So this was submitted to Jennifer in the planning department, and she noticed the rear single-story shed roof footprint that appeared on a 1924 map. And therefore, that's where she made the recommendation for us to go in front of the Historical Commission. And this is just the paperwork from that process. And we put the data sheet into the presentation. We are number 21, which is the third from the bottom. It was described as a home from 1875, which is about actually the age of the home, as a stylistic Victorian. Next slide, please. And this is Chestnut Street. The green home on the right side of the screen is our home that we want to do the project on. This is the front of the house. There will be no demo to the front of the house. This is looking toward Bromsfield Street. The home on the left is a ranch that took the place of the old Noise Combs factory. So this is just giving context to the street in the south end of Newburyport. Next slide. This is looking in the other direction toward Marlborough Street to give context. Next slide. Here's a view of the kind of another contextual photo. On the right side, you'll see the two cars in our driveway. Behind the silver car is a tree, and behind that tree is the shed roof that we're talking about, a portion of the shed roof. And it is in this area that we want to put the new addition. Next slide, please. Here is the front of the house, and on the right side, you can see the back little shed roof kind of peeking out on Chestnut Street. This is Chestnut Street. Next slide, please. This photo shows you the shed roof in the back of the house is to the right. And there is a 4'9" by 6 foot section we want to pull down that is extending beyond the main part of the house. And this photo shows that. Next slide, please. And here is the view in the backyard, not from the front. So, and you can see on the left side of your screen, that protrusion of the shed roof that extends out beyond the main gable of the house. Next slide. And this is just a side view of the other side of the house. The left side shows you the back shed roof, not the part that we're demolishing, but that will remain. And then the right side, you'll see Chestnut Street on the far right. Next slide. And here is a site plan showing the neighborhood homes. The portion with a slash hat on the toward the left is the existing. There's a little outcropping bump to the back that you see. And then the hatching that is double hatched is the new proposed addition. So this is showing really what the final footprint will be. You could go to the next slide. We're getting more into the detailed site plan. This is what was submitted to Jennifer in the planning department for setbacks and whatnot. But you can see the same hatching where you see it says new, and if there's any zoom up, zoom in, you could, that might help, Caitlin. It says new footprint. Yeah. And there's that little square in the back center there. That is the proposed section that would be demolished for the new footprint. The rest of the presentation gets into the elevations and whatnot. So if that may be enough for your discussion to determine if it's historical, historical, I suppose it may be a good time to proceed with that.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. And so I'll do a similar but slightly different procedure as we just did, but similar in that I will go around to my fellow commissioners here to see if there are opinions to be had. Let's see, this time I'll start with Christopher Fay. I think you were last time. Any thoughts on the significance?
Again, I would say based upon the age of the house, I think it fits the criteria, but I don't see anything here worth preserving. It seems to be a very small change. I don't know what the total amount is, but if we're just dealing with the first question, then I would say it is historically significant. Okay,
and I meant to read this. I took a look at what the, this. It was mentioned that in the data sheet it was listed as minor contributing structure. So I just want to read you what that actually means. Buildings with clearly major identifiable elements of their original, that is pre-1930 designs have been designated as contributing. Structures which appear to predate 1930 and which are similar in scale and materials to their neighbors, but which have undergone major alterations such that their period of origin cannot be readily determined, have been designated as minor contributing structures. So the implication is that might be sort of kind of contributing, but not in a major way. So it's not, I'm not sure how helpful that is, but that's what that designation is supposed to mean. So anyway, so there we go. So let's see, how about Joe, any thoughts?
Gosh, thank you for that, because I was going to just give it the benefit of the doubt and vote it as significant because of it's a little bit older than what we just saw. And it's in an older portion of the city, an older street. But you're right. I mean, it really doesn't have much to recommend it in terms of a stylistic.
Yeah.
In terms of style, actual Caitlin's actual summary was a stylistic Victorian.
Yeah, that's how it's.
I don't know what makes it Victorian. I can certainly see it lacks a lot of style, but
that was the time period. But that's exactly what the data sheet calls it, is a stylistic.
So it's redundant. I mean, basically, the fact that it dates from the late 19th century, and therefore it's Victorian. But I mean, it doesn't have any actual architectural features that would flag it as such.
Yeah, it's pretty generic. If it helps,
I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence about it, but I guess I would say there's no need to continue the discussion on it if we're not trying to preserve something there. So
let's see if this helps or not. My plan I'm going to take a slightly different tack this time. The first vote will simply be, is it historically significant? period. And that'll be our first vote, and then we can see where that takes us. So we can focus on, I'm trying to make it, more clear and more simple. First of all, will simply be, is it historically significant? And then
I have
yeah.
a question.
Yes, go
Chair.
ahead, Andrew.
I'm just wondering, I mean, in this case, it's a minor adjustment. If we tonight say that it's not historically significant, and then 6 months from now, the owner of the house comes and says, I just want to redo every window and everything.
Mm-hmm. They
And
can
at
do
that point, it might be historically significant.
Yeah.
Do we set precedent when we say something's not historically significant now, and 2 years from now say it is historically significant?
Well, it's a really good question, Andrew. And my understanding, and I'm fairly confident this is correct, is that you don't get another bite of the apple, so to speak. If we decide it's not historically significant, that's the end of the story. In fact, they could apply for a demo permit to knock the whole thing down. And
right.
Wouldn't be anything we could do about it, or not. But yeah, if it's not historically significant, or even if it's historically significant but not considered for preservation, like the one we just did, they can pretty much do whatever they want. So if that answers your question, that's in many cases that's why we tend to err on the side of historically significant and considered for preservation. That way we could at least. If we're happy with the plan, we say, hey, it's in the back, it's minor, it's not going to hurt, it's not going to have any adverse effect on the historical value. What we do is we just approve the plan tonight, and they can go ahead and do that, but we still have some protection against something like a wholesale demolition and that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments from the board? I don't think, Andrew, did you have any thoughts to add on that, or is that just that question?
I'm saying that's historically significant,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
it's going to be a minor change. I think we should walk through the process.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like you're in that field. You're in that camp that would say, okay, let's consider it. But from what we've seen so far, the plans, and we'll look a little further, we can probably be fine with them.
Hi, Glenn. This is
Yes.
Caitlin. I just wanted to make a note that the structure is in the R2 and DCOD, the Demolition Control Overlay District. So to take down or change, 25% of the walls would require a special permit from the ZBA.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that correction. So, okay. So what Caitlin is saying is that my statement about they could, come back and demolish the whole thing that's not correct. If they want to demolish more than 25%, they would still have to come back for approval. Is that right, Caitlin?
They would need to go to the ZBA for a special permit and then
Right.
for advisory review from
Right.
you.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, having that discussion, I'm hoping to hear a motion that the motion's always phrased in the positive. So the motion would be the structure is historically significant. If you disagree, simply vote in the negative. Would someone care to make the motion?
This is Joe. I move that 21 Chestnut is historically significant.
Okay.
But I will add that it also should be considered for as
preservation,
preferentially preserved. Yeah.
Well, do you want to make the motion that it's historically significant and considered for preservation?
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so that's Joe and Mark. Okay, very good. So Andrew, sounds like from what you just said, you're probably going to vote yes on that, but I don't want to assume anything.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, Mark Cindrone?
No.
No. Okay, Christopher Fay?
I'm a no.
Okay, Joe Morgan?
Well, I'll vote yes.
Okay, and the chair also votes yes. However, having garnered only 3 affirmative votes, the motion does not pass. So as a result, it is not voted historically significant and considered for preservation. So we're like the first one, there is no demolition delay, and building permits for this project may be granted. So let's make a note here. Oops. Okay, is anyone have any questions on that? How that was all done?
Mhm.
If not, we can move to, so since you're relatively new to this process, Eric and Maura, I believe it was,
Yeah.
so what this means is that we have not said that we don't need to review your plans at this point. I mean, de facto, we've kind of looked them over already anyway. The board is not does not feel that what you're doing will have a negative impact on whatever historic values exist or might exist today. So you may proceed with your plans. The building commissioner will be informed that it's okay to issue demo and building permits. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you're done with us.
Excellent. Thank you,
Thank you
Chair.
so much.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Okay, well, we're moving along a lot faster than I expected. Gee, I wonder if everyone just wants to get out of here tonight. Anyway, so moving right along, we have just a couple of correspondence types of things. Let's see. The proposed preservation restriction for the Cushing house, this is just an FYI, no action required. There was a Mass Historic had a question about it, which involved Exhibit E. You might recall this one. Exhibit E is that one pager that kind of explains what's a major change and a minor change. You know, the major changes obviously requiring approval of the board and so on. Minor changes like, you know, a spot repair in kind type of thing, those are okay. And there was some oddities with the one that was included. We think it was from kind of carried over from an earlier version of the PR. So we told the Mass Historic Commission to go ahead and use their standard Exhibit E, which is pretty much identical to what we normally use. So so that's going forward. So that's just an FYI. No action required on that. The other one, now the market landing, okay, this one does have an action required, and that is, and I want to get a vote on this. I did get some comments via email from one or two persons of the board here. This is a review on the draft historical report for Market Landing Park. That's the visitor center and so on that's been proposed. So hopefully you had a chance to look at that. So if you have, and Caitlin's showing that on the screen. So does anyone on the board have a correction or change or anything that they would like amended to that? I mean, you all loved it.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, the chair will be happy to entertain a motion to approve the draft to be considered the report, and I'll pass that. I'll just take the draft off of it, and we'll move it along in the process. Is there a motion to approve that draft report?
I move that we approve the report.
Thank you, Chris.
And Andrew, I second it.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay, your vote, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, Mark Syndrome?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Christopher Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll add my yay to that. So that passes. Very good. We do have 5 affirmative votes, so that's good. All right, so that'll be the formal report. The next item, the project, let's see. Okay, I'll go by Caitlin's list here. Approval of the minutes from July 14. I didn't have any issue with them. Hopefully you had a chance to review them. Did anyone have any corrections? Or if not, someone may make a motion to approve them.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of 7/14/22.
Okay, thanks. Second?
Seconded.
That was Joe, right?
Yep.
Okay. Malcolm, excuse me, Malcolm and Andrew.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Mark?
Yes.
Okay, Christopher Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair is yes, so we're good with that. Okay, good. Correspondence. There was just a notification again, an FYI, no action required. Those of you who are with the commission, it's been a couple of years, I think now. There was we reviewed a plan to make a connection for the Newbury section of the rail trail. It goes kind of, the traffic circle on Route 1. They're trying to connect it to that section of the rail trail that goes along by the Oak Hill Cemetery and so on. And a piece of that is in Newbury, not Newburyport. So they're working on that. So it's just a notification that that's going forward. We had reviewed it a while back and determined that there's no negative impact on any historical values there. I believe that's, Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, that's just an FYI type of thing, correct?
Yep, that's right. Thank you.
Okay. And there was a request for communications, 37.5 Forrester Street. That's the old schools that is now a professional building on Forrester Street, but that's being continued because the people who wanted to talk about it could not attend tonight. Is that correct, Caitlin?
Yes, that's correct. Someone should be here at your next meeting to go over the project. However, I believe Director Port has some comments to offer at this meeting. Is that right?
Okay.
Andy?
Yeah, thanks. Just briefly, it was identified that there was a preservation restriction for this structure, separate from zoning or anything else. So we had asked them to clarify the extent to which that review process had begun. I can go through that in more detail for you if you want, but basically we just asked them to clarify that PR was approved by Mass Historical and is perpetual. It's actually held by the National Architectural Trust. And so we're waiting to hear back from T-Mobile and their consultant as to the review process there. They couldn't provide us an immediate answer today before this meeting.
Yeah, because they'll probably have to get a review by Mass Historical Commission, I would think, right?
I guess under this particular PR, it isn't actually held by Mass Historical, although they can approve it for perpetual nature. So it is held, and the review itself would happen by the Architectural Association. But the bottom line, I guess, is that PR does make it clear that the rooftop appurtenances are subject to the review.
Okay.
That was just a quick scan of it. So that being the case, I had the PR, for instance, exempted that. We might not have had that question or concern, but we asked them to clarify the status of that review because we think that's important for the Historic Commission's, comment.
Okay, so that group, what did you call it? Some architectural.
It's the the National Architectural Trust Incorporated. It's identified as in Washington, and this was recorded at the registry back in 2004.
Okay, so they're the actual grantee.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue that. We'll put that on the next meeting's agenda and see if they can show up for that. Andy, did you have any other updates from you? Because I have one or two from me.
No, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay, just very briefly, there is a new member that has been met with the Planning and Development Committee, I believe it is, and they're scheduled for a vote by the city. They're first vote by the City Council sometime in August. The name is Biff Bouse, B-O-U-S-E. Don't know if any of you know Biff. It's a new name for me. I haven't. This was a kind of a surprise to me, but I'm going to try to meet with Biff probably sometime next week to just get to know him and answer any questions he might have and kind of review how everything goes here. But so that's good. We'll be back up to a full committee of 7, which is always good. And there's also Gene Costello, who I'll also, now that I'm back from vacation, we'll try to meet with probably again sometime next week, who's also interested. So maybe we can also have an alternate. So in the case of an absence, we can still have 7 members, which will be great because for all the obvious reasons, I don't need to belabor it. So that's it for me. I think the only vote we have to take now is on adjournment. Is that that's the only thing I see, right? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
That sounded like Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Is it seconded?
I second Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Okay, well, Mr. Bernhardt, do you vote yay?
Yes.
Okay. How about Mr. Sandrone? How about you?
Yes.
Okay. Christopher Fay.
Yes.
Joe Morgan.
Yes.
And shockingly, the chair is also in favor of adjournment. Okay, so good. We've completed the agenda for tonight. I thank you so very much for your attention. Sorry about the probably possibly unnecessary review of the process in the beginning. And I bid you all have a pleasant evening, and I'm glad it turned out to not take as long as it possibly might have. And
Night.
bid you good night.
Good night. Good night.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Okay,
Good night,
you're
everyone.
welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.